So you're going to do 5-minute text?
Was it the yellow one? No, the green one. It's like a red.
You can't get buried in a Jewish cemetery. I don't know, but my dad is always like,
I moved that.
buried alone.
The camera's just right there, but the brightness down. But it's kind of like position. So if you're right here, you can also see the cover of the book. Just look wide.
Thank you.
There.
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. You have to join us on the other side.
hello to Marcus, even though I'm holding a plate of Chipotle in my hand, which is ridiculous. This book has been out for so long, but I'm so excited to read from it. And I brought my copy to the side. Yeah.
I have to make sure that
you know what? All you gotta do is be you. That's all I'm here for.
for my brothers in the room today.
What's up? I know. And you're also Glover too, right? That's a huge
That's right.
That's like some gold mines. Yeah. Yeah, you were my people. Thank you for being my team. Yeah.
Sorry if it derailed at all. We left.
I mean, I feel like we have a press that changes every single year. Sorry.
It's a great idea.
No, but you guys do a great job. It's just a continuation for some work. Anyway, I want to start.
Are you good? Do you want anything?
I feel it's so rude to have food. Then I'm gonna.
Hi, everybody. Hello. So great to see you all. Some folks we haven't seen or I haven't seen for a bit. I think we're going to get started. And thank you for coming all the way over to the generator building, which is kind of an adventure for some folks. We have windows here, which is nice. Yay!
I believe there's like explosive down there.
Oh, yeah. I'd just like to start, first of all, by acknowledging that Calarts' main campus is on the unceded ancestral lands of the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, who have been here for millennia. And this is one cool thing about Calarts is that through meaningful partnership and collaboration, Calarts is trying to help lift up stories, culture, and community of this band. Welcome to the very first reading of the Writing Now reading series for fall 2025. And we're very excited to welcome Marcus Clayton here. And we hope you'll stick around afterwards too to meet Marcus and chat with us and have some snacks and beverages too. Marcus Clayton is a multi-genre Afro-Latino writer from Southgate, California, and a current lecturer for various English, ethnic studies, and African American studies departments within the CSU system. He holds an MFA in poetry from California State University, Long Beach, and a PhD in literature and creative writing from the University of Southern California. I'm just going to give a little shout out to him. His book of mixed genre prose, PÓNK, released with Nightboat Books, and a previous chapbook of poems, Nurture the Open Wounds, can be found with Glass Poetry Press. A few current publications include the anthology Black Punk Now, the Los Angeles Review of Books, Indiana Review, Apogee Journal, Passages North, and the Oxford Handbook of Punk Rock. He's working on probably too many new projects, but when not in the writing world, he is sometimes seen and heard playing guitar and shouting for Los Angeles punk band Tudors, or at home tolerating his hyperactive pug named Darby Crash. Please help me welcome Marcus to the podium.
Thank you all so very much. All right, just a quick punk history lesson right now. There's a famous punk band, Minor Threat, lead singer Ian MacKaye. He doesn't like me, by the way. That's a separate story. That's a separate story entirely. But I've always made fun of the fact that whenever he plays, either with Minor Threat or Fugazi, which I do love Fugazi, he's always messing with the microphone whenever he's talking. And ever since I said that, anytime I do a reading or anytime I'm in front of a microphone, I'm always doing this instinctively. But it is what it is. Thank you so much for inviting me here to, spend time with your program, your school, your faculty, all of your students who are, very lucky to have the faculty that you have, and I'm excited to read some stuff for you. I decided I'm going to read for you 2 minutes ago. I had no idea what I was going to read. Normally, I mentioned this in Chris's class earlier, and also it's in the bio he just read, but I consider myself a poet once upon a time for my MFA, and I was in charge of putting on events too. They didn't pay me to do that, but I was a poet person, and then I made this thing, this book thing, and when you do readings, especially for prose, it's different than poetry. You have to read entire things. So I did. I used to. During some readings, I would try to just read portions and just kind of jump around and just go to really out of context parts of the book. So this is all to say, today I'm going to try something new. I guess I'm going to read an entire piece all the way through. I'm going to read the piece. I was telling Chris' class earlier, I'm going to read the piece that Nightboat tried to silence. Anyway, I'm going to give you context though. I'm just going to read it. It's entitled "Said the Dandelions," and I got this thing here. It'll make sense when you hear it. Anyways, overture. Scene: Southgate, California. Sometime in the late 1990s and throughout the 2000s. The player, the child. Trust is taught to be a myth in Southgate. All doors in the city are locked at night out of necessity. The most underprivileged houses must wear gates surrounding the yard or bars fitted over windows like a warm sweater. Backyards are not where grass grows, long for children to break their falls playing tag, but a stage illuminated by spotlights poured out by police helicopters. The actors are runners, climbing fences and brick, trying to escape the light, trying to find a back door without a lock so they can bust in and hide. Look, the city devoid of whites. They flew away after the 70s, took the wealth with them, sawed off some of the gravel from Southgate so that the junk cars left over for the brown folk could be further beaten up by the ground. Whites flew away like dandelion seeds caught in the wind. People are in awe of the seeds as the stem freezes naked. Here is a very small house, adequately sized for an only child of a brown mother and a black father. The house is rented. Did you think it was owned? Don't be silly. Mountains of debt and bills kept the parents from even imagining home ownership. The living room and dining room are conjoined. The other side of the dining table blocked off due to a lack of room. The stove is broken, and the heater does little else than stub toes. See the window in the back of the child's bedroom, attached to a door leading to the backyard. A dresser blocks the door per the parent's request. The window is still visible through a gate, though a grate skewed the view to the backyard can potentially skewer a robber's hand from reaching inside the home. On hot days, the window opens with a grate bent at an angle to place a fan on top of it. It works fine until the child searches for a missing item on the floor. The rusted grate impales the top of the child's head, palm painted in blood after putting pressure on the wound. The child, toward the audience. Southgate background dimmed to illuminate the aura of the child. He coddles his wound like a child of his own, hoping to raise the scab into a healthy scar. So much of life is spent proving you exist when all you've known of safety and comfort are locked doors. I've learned to find visibility through suffering, though no one taught me where the suffering is supposed to go. Does it float away to evaporate into the air, or does it become hail and hurt everyone? The child fades back into Southgate, now illuminated like a brush fire. The landscape is caked in weeds, little tombstones of forgotten grass. The child, off stage. Oh, how I wish for the privilege to escape, to fly away like dandelions. I don't like it here. Take me to where this wound is no longer a wound, please. An opera. Scene, Echo Park, California, sometime in the mid-2000s. The players, Costa Rican, the half-black, Mexican who says, Cuban with Pontiac, Gloria Anzaldúa, Ariana Brown, Franz Fanon, Aishat Akanbi, Dr. Alan Balaz Lopez, and dandelions. Names redacted, ethnicity withheld. The dandelions are weeds with trust funds. The fragile white heads understood to be true beauty. They sprout throughout the Los Angeles area where Oasis Springs are pools of IPA, where the echo oozes reverb of hipster guitars. Dandelions want to be the ally to the marginalized. They want to live on the front lines of violence and be louder than police bullets. Their voices are skeleton keys to unlock handcuffs fastened over profiled wrists. They think they want to understand the language of the other. There's an apartment at the top of the hill. Party music spills into LA air through a window open to appease musty guests. Inside, dozens of wallflowers with dandelion heads line the couches. They're under the impression that this is a party for the rejected, designated outsiders in the manner 90s sitcoms taught adolescents. A party for white kids whose glasses were too large, GPAs too high, face caked in pus, who are one removed scrunchie away from perfection, ignoring how they are the desired demographic. The 20-somethings play Super Smash Brothers across tabletops, and in case of boredom, board games sit with top shelf tequila and Gentleman Jack. Among the white kids, 3 brown dots scattered like stars, each a different shade of brown. Each knows the ground beneath Echo Park had buried people like them. Each brown dot once lived in Southgate, but has moved on to greener pastures, as their mothers and abuelas begged them to do. When the 3 brown dots talk, they talk across the living room about crimes for which they freely plead guilty. Costa Rican the half-black sips a rum and coke from a red cup, speaks to Mexican who says, blacking out his friend's name to find solace with the conversation. Watch all the words. Watch Cuban with Pontiac attentive to his skin folk as these 3 brown dots work together to understand the words that damage them. Watch dandelions refuse to point their fragile heads toward all the words that hurt so many, all the words they've sowed themselves. Costa Rican half-black. Mama screamed, "Hijo de gran puta, te chino," when we're almost sideswiped on the freeway. Didn't even see the driver, she just assumed. Beat. Really, Mama calls every Asian chinitos, all of them, like Chinamen. It's fucking annoying. Mama laughs at the name Nguyen because it sounds funny to her, yet she gets mad at people who can't pronounce her own name. It's not like they confuse her for Latina since her skin is white as snow. Beat. She came to America when she was 8, then was immediately bullied because her language made no sense to the white kids. What'd she do? Learn the colonizer language to fit in. Got some of that sweet oppressive power to protect herself. Beat. But who am I to tell her that? She still slept with cockroaches and shat in holes in the dirt behind her shack growing up in Costa Rica. Fucking sucks. So, to not flaunt my degrees as though her journey was a failure, the best I can do is correct her and say, Mom, that's racist. But she'll just say, oh, it is? Damn, sorry. I'll give her this. My mom cried for a Chinese watch repair woman. Passed away from a sudden stroke. Woman had a name, but I never learned it. Mom remembered her. Said they never had a true conversation, but the wordlessness brought them together. No weight of expectations for understanding when we rely on actions. That's how she saw it anyway. Mama still speaks fondly to this day of the sweet Chinese woman named, who was actually Chinese. Ma took the time to learn the woman's background. How proud I should be. The dandelions can't find their mouths, can't vouch for the pride in admitting faults. No, they keep playing. I was worried about that too. They keep playing games and drinking to forget their own troubles. Drown out 3 brown dots, having the moments and trying to come to Jesus. All that good shit. Gloria Anzaldúa. The answer to the problem between the white race and the colored, between the male and females, lies in healing the split that originates in the very foundation of our lives, our culture, our language, our thoughts. A massive uprooting of dualistic thinking in the individual and collective consciousness is in the beginning of a long struggle, but one that could, in our best hopes, bring us to the end of rape, of violence, of war. Costa Rican half-black. Wishful thinking, bruh. I mean, I'm no angel, right? Like my Cambodian friend at work and I make fun of white people all the time, you know, because we can. We make fun of how racist some can be, but purposefully and accidentally. Listen for dandelions' laughter and nods. See them sweat. See their fear. Relief in interpreting my Cambodian friend as permission for dandelions to wear my black friend as shields. Then he'll make jokes about each other's cultures as if we know what it means to live in them. He'll make fried chicken jokes or elote jokes, and I'll counter with, oh yeah? Well, Pol Pot, and he'll laugh. But almost out of a sense of self-hatred. Pol Pot listens in the conversation among the wallflowers, but says nothing. Cambodian Prime Minister from 1975 to 1979. He feasts off of the few who regard him as a champion of socialism and Cambodian sovereignty. Most keep him cornered as a dictator, directly responsible for the Cambodians' genocide during his rule. Listen to his sins as Dead Candy's Holiday in Cambodia plays over the party speakers, a song lambasting the white liberals' search for culture within the suffering of marginalized groups. The white liberal who will wag a finger at fiends like Pol Pot without actually saving a Cambodian life. Listen to the original recording. There are the lines, play ethnic jazz to parade your snaz on your $5 stereo, bragging that you know how the niggers feel cold and the slums got so much soul. Dandelions feel seen in this line, but refuse to acknowledge Chuck's proximities to the slur. Instead, they condemn Jello Biafra's usage of the slur, if coded in irony, even if coded in irony. Then they look at the Costa Rican half-black for approval. Then wait. Somewhere, Jello Biafra sings the songs with blacks in place of the offending slur, stripping the song of its honesty. He legit hates Chinese, says they make Cambodians feel lower class, says they look at Cambodians as dirty as Mexicans see Central Americans, says his Cambodian friends just pretend they are Chinese to feel empowered and invisible from white pressures. Dandelions continue to hear, though it is unknown whether they are listening. It's all learned, right? Like our parents tell us to look for violence in the eyes of people who don't look like us. When the whites refuse to make eye contact with us, they force us to search for violence elsewhere, inward, towards brothers and sisters. Dandelions refuse the shame, but look down anyway. The roots spread without their notice, but they don't stop it. Are we bad people? Are our parents bad people? Sweat of dandelions is due. Cuban with Pontiac is smiling with his fourth IPA half emptied. A blue cardigan haggled with an H&M sculpted over his body. Long strands of auburn washed over his shoulders. While he indulges in white spoils, his tongue still knows Cuba, the taste of Havana without American spices, the remnants of torn Che Guevara propaganda between his fingernails. How Mexican who says praises Che's revolutionary charisma as the benchmark for Latinx freedom. How Cuban with Pontiac only hears the death throes of Cuban ancestors in his voice. Cuban with Pontiac. Nah, man, we're not the bad guys. We can't be the bad guys, but I totally know what you mean. My mom once told me this joke when Abuela gave me her hand-me-down car, the rundown red number that's been through at least 3 owners in our family alone. She goes, you know what Pontiac stands for, right? Nervous laughter spills from Cuban to Pontiac. Dandelions stay glued to the games, furrowed brows and nervous anticipation. Keys in the current year's model car clung to their pockets. Please don't say the N-word, the hive mind prays. We won't know how to react with him around, they think, staring directly at Costa Rica the half-black. Poor old nigger thinks it's a Cadillac. Hold for applause, hold for laughter. When neither arrive, watch dandelions convulse, seeds finally fly from their heads from the mild wind. Nonetheless, their white crowns hold together. Costa Rican the half-black, however, fumes. Did not need to hear the punchline because he knew the punchline already. Has lived being the punchline too long to stand for what Cuban the Pontiac's mom thinks is okay to say. Costa Rican the half-black tries to black out the joke, but it's too late. Cuban with Pontiac tries to explain, and we all carry on. I said, Mom, you can't say that, but you can say that. You just can't say that, but you can't say that, but tact, woman. Tact, tact, tact. Tact, 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 tact. Now, Mexican who says chest stands triumphant, silk screen on Mexican who says shirt. Joe slicks his hair back like rain slowing a horse. His smile also refuses to die. In his red cup is a second Paloma, a favorite among his family. Stereotypes be damned. His jeans will be loose. His skin is golden despite dandelions seeing rust. Mexican who says vocabulary is molded by South Central. His influx of Black friends doses him with a placebo of unity. Mexican who says, it's not racist. It's a joke, right? I mean, I have Asian friends, Black friends, points at Costa Rican the half Black. I have grown up using the word like, hey, how's the family? You look healthy. You look happy, Mike. Costa Rican the half Black. Please stop using that word. Knowing a minimum required amount of Black people doesn't give you the permission, doesn't give you the N-word pass, bro. Mexican says, it's that bad. If we delete the word, toxins stay. Snakes can be defanged without decapitation. Briefly, watch Mexican who says, walk into a bar on a date. After too many palomas, he sees a Black man looking directly at the two. The discomfort is palpable, and exit strategies learned in South Central take over his body. He becomes Mexican who says, like you, Soon, the letters escape confinement. He says, hey, what are you looking at, nigger? Don't stare at me like that. So that the Black man can feel the full poison of Mexican who says, mouth. While his date will plead that he simply had too much to drink, several Black bouncers escort him outside. They take him to the alley where lights are extinguished, and they feed him bruises in hopes to extract the word like teeth. Do these fists teach when conversations fail? When synthesis actually pulls apart the body due to the comfort of a tongue sampling cultures? Does that reinforce white supremacy when the hope was to dismantle? Can't the dandelions speak to this? Costa Rican half Black. Let me say first, my grandma went to a priest when she found out Mama was about to marry a Black man. My grandma always said that being Costa Rican means not wanting any trouble, but she forgets her daughter faced more pushback from whites than Blacks when she first arrived in America. Trouble will always find us, but being together, this unity Mama and Pops wanted to create, is what adds to the peace my grandma prays for. We can't have unlocked doors if we keep taking from each other. Watch, the second she stops being so anti-Black, she'll learn that she can have open doors without fear of a storm tearing down her home. Still, in her confessions, she tells the priest that her daughter is in danger. Priest just tells her, having fear is sin. Despite that, I can tell my grandma feels Mama betrayed the ancestors. Gloria Antaldúa. En boca cerrada no entra moscas. Beat. I remember one of the sins I'd recite to the priest in the confession box the few times I went to confession, talking back to mother, hablar para atrás, replar. Ociona, replerona, chismosa, having a big mouth, questioning, carrying tales are all signs of being malcriada. Ariana Brown. Let me be clear. Spanish was given to my people at the end of a sword, forcing in our throats gory, sharpened under the colonizer's constant eye. Each rolled R is a red, wet fingerprint pointing me back to this. The Spanish is not my native tongue. English isn't either. The languages I speak are bursting with blood, but they're all I have. Three brown dots cower at the thought of dislodging their mother tongue, but no, deep down, it could heal many things. How do you say evolve when ancestors hear disrepair? Sins can be snuffed by forgiveness, but when they are spoken out loud, they can maliciously deafen. Watch dandelions thrive on the silences. Make three brown dots believe their mouths bring violence when all they want is a world where the elders can live without fear. Keep with Pontiac. Hey, speaking of fear, remember that time that you, finger pointing firmly at Costa Rican the half Black's face, were like about to cancel your flight when you found out you were sitting next to an Arab? Your words, not mine, dude. Like that time your family went to the airport a year or two after 9/11 and your cousin screamed Habibs when she saw a few Sikh men walking through the terminals minding their own business. Hold for laughter. While you wait, open this time capsule. Not only after the Sikh men were villainized, Three Brown Dots found representation in comedy, namely Carlos Mencia. His 2006 special, No Strings Attached, focused on levying racial stereotypes for laughs. Listen to the roar of laughter when Mencia details attacking an Arab. In the bit, he refers to them as alalas. In the front row, a bald white man cheers loudest at the thought of executing an Arab. His arms flail in celebration, 2 devil horns formed in his raised fists. In Costa Rica, the half-blacks high school, a classmate repeats one of Mencia's jokes, specifically saying, "Don't worry, teacher, I'm brown, but I'm not alala." Teacher gets mad. Teacher demands the students never use that phrase again. Teacher is Mexican, but will relinquish his patriotism if it means his Arab peers can retain their humanity. Then you befriended the dude. Remember? You remember. Remember? Hung out all the time, consider him your brother. You're even like, man, Islam gets a bad rap. I'd totally convert to Islam once this lapsed Catholicism runs its course. But you couldn't even tell. You couldn't even tell if you meant any of it. Like, you couldn't tell if you were being nice, or maybe the guilt of harboring post 9/11 fears are so long terrified you because despite what you called a double minority, this was white supremacy, scapegoating to prove you are not the problem. Then you totally don't own up to that past. You get invested in being an ally to try and fail to erase your own sins. Allies are supposed to friggin' help people, not alienate, not become invasive, not flaunt how woke you've become while pretending that you have no expectations of rewards, dude. It's totally a white thing to vacation other people's cultures to build armor against accusations of racism, no matter how much you disguise it as trying to find an objective moral high ground. Like, do you get mad at your mom for the Asian stuff because you truly feel for Asians, or do you feel associating your problem with your problematic ass parents will make you look bad? Who are you trying to impress? Hold for applause. The dandelions pray their seeds will blow away in the ovation, but the whiteness stays. Carry on. Frantz Fanon. All forms of exploitation resemble one another. They all seek the source of the necessity in some edict of the biblical nature. All forms of exploitation are identical because all of them are applied against the same object, man. Beat. Dandelions continue to pray. I am enraged. I am bled white by an appalling battle. I am deprived of the possibility of being a man. I can't disassociate myself from the future that is proposed for my brother. Every one of my acts commits me as a man. Every one of my silences, every one of my cowardices reveals me as a man. Aisha Akandi. We have to make mistakes. Life is trial and error. Awareness is understanding how much you don't know. A lot of my beliefs and ideas are constantly being shattered, and I really welcome it. I don't know about an objective truth, but at least if you're someone seeking a deeper understanding, you're welcome being wrong. It's a pleasure to be wrong because when you're wrong, you're closer to being right. Maybe the first sign of knowing anything is knowing you know nothing at all. Dandelion's heads sprawl to create silent outlines of the dot's feet. 3 brown nuts are surrounded by the weeds they are forced to call beauty. They waft in the winds of anonymity. Cuban with Pontiac. Maybe our fear of using words will go away too. In time, of course, if it even needs to. I mean, you and I have been friends for over a decade, and I'm pretty cool with your dad, and I would never say that word. Flash forward. Birthday karaoke. Cuban with Pontiac turns 29. He has too much sake before singing/rapping along the Childish Gambino's bonfire with some other brown friends and dandelions. They drunkenly recite, Gambino is a call girl, fuck you, pay me, brand new whip these niggas for these niggas like slavery. And Cuban with Pontiac screams the N-word with a soft A as though his own ankles were freed of chains for the first time. Costa Rican the half-black is in the audience for this, though he does not tell Cuban with Pontiac about the knots in his stomach every time Cuban said the word, especially not in front of the cheering dandelions. Instead, Costa Rican the half-black says, happy birthday. I love you. Good night. Leaves early. Never brings it up again. Flash forward has ended. So return to Echo Park. Pollen of the dandelions has not yet returned to the dots from the allergy. Costa Rican the half-black reminisces, but still struggles when even he thinks of the N-word. Costa Rican the half-black. It's a frightening world when words are frightening, but please, black friend is no excuse for her. Especially when you're brown, you should know better, bro. Like your moms, my moms, you should all know better. Dr. Alan Bailez Lopez, this wounding of Latinidad, the anti-blackness, is a wound that any Latinx of color experiences. I say this because racism against people of color is informed by the idea that dark-skinned people are backwards and savage. Racism necessitates anti-Blackness as Blackness was marked unhuman during slavery. This mark of unhuman facilitates racism and colorism, which people of color experience. However, non-Black people of color do not experience anti-Blackness. In fact, they may perpetuate anti-Blackness, which maintains controlled image of Blackness and melanin as bad. Because people of color have melanin and live as racialized subjects, an investment in anti-Blackness is an investment in the very root of why they experience racism and colorism. Therefore, the liberation of all Latinx people of color necessitates the liberation of Black Latinx. If this does not happen, systems of racism, colorism, and anti-Blackness will prevail in the Latinx community. Mexican who says, but we're the same. It's all reclamation, nigga. Because we're gonna have Black frustrated that his Black boxes keep failing him, gets up from his seat, drink empty, but gripped by angry fist. The dandelions freeze, hope to pretend to ignore an impending fight, but will not be afraid to call the cops should their fragile heads risk blowing away by the fray. Costa Rican half-Black. We are not the same! Franz Fanon. Confronted with a world configured by the colonizer. The colonized subject is always presumed guilty. The colonized does not accept his guilt, but rather considers it a kind of curse, a sword of Damocles. Kim with Pontiac. Speaking of swords, y'all ever play Legend of Zelda? Snaps fingers, reverberations of pry wallflowers, eyelids open like manhole covers pouring sunlight into sewers. 3 brown dots sit back down, avert violence they've been causing one another for so long. They listen to Kim with Pontiac's bandage. Dandelions exhale in relief that they no longer have to worry about doing any work tonight. It's like every game is the same. You get through all these obstacles and you're finally at the last boss. You fight the last boss, you beat the last boss gets all of his health back. Then you end up fighting the same monster, a bigger version, like the real monster, with your health now drained to the last drop. Dandelions, names redacted, and the city withheld, poised off stage, all together. We know exactly what you're talking about. Exunt reticence of still flowers. Enter confidence of dandelions thrilled to twist the tense air, steer it into video games to speak common loser language, to drown seeds of empathy with top shelf tequila, to revel in mainstream rejection. Enter noise that grows large with teeth like a polar bear on hind legs as spores float around the room and douse everything in pearl painted petals, emphasizes the brown in the eyes of the 3 brown dots, hides them, makes them believe they are the color of shit, makes them swear the dandelions are not weeds. 3 brown dots, names redacted, in the city red held. I'll stop there. Adrenaline's amazing because like right before I started reading, I had a massive headache, I'm not gonna lie to you. And it is gone. It is gone now. So what now?
Are you cool taking some questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Great. Does anyone want to ask any questions or have any comments?
I have a question. Thank you for your reading. And this may be something you covered in the class, so forgive me if it is, but for example, what you just read is in the form of a play or there's a dramatic structure. And then there are other parts of the book that feel more like poems or lyric essays. And there are things that seem more like traditional essays. I was curious about how you navigated these different formal styles and especially how you organize them together in the book. Because there are a lot of folks here, I think, or at least some of our Calarts and FA students that I've worked with are also working in different styles and have that struggle. Like, how do you know how to pull those things together and order them? Mm-hmm. What was that like for you?
I will give you a terrible answer first and then a better one right now. Terrible answer. I just kind of knew.
You just, your intuition.
Yeah, there you go. No, better answer though. These were all pieces I had worked on, I guess, separate from one another over time. And I didn't know what to do a lot of them. Like the one I just read to all of you right now started life as a 2-page poem I did for my MFA that I was told, hey, turn it to a full play, and I was like, nah. But I did want to expand it, but I didn't want to have it become a play, and I still want to have its poetic license. But also, I did enjoy the idea that it could have the potential of having a narrative through line. And so I did that, put it aside. I had other stories I'd written that had like similar characters. I did those, put it aside. I had written essays about growing up in Southeast LA and like punk scenes around there, and then I put those to the side. And I I wish I had a better answer for this part, but just one day I was just looking at a bunch of them at the same time and just saw that they had this similar through line of, because of alternative communities I had been a part of, I became the person I am now. But I'm also but I also have some fiction in here, so it's not really me. But I had decided, I mentioned this in the class actually earlier, is the more I thought about what genre should this be, the more I felt it was going to taint the project and was going to make the artistic merit of it just diminished entirely. And generally speaking, like the genre, I'm just like, unless you're trying to sell a book, there's no reason for genre to exist. But thank you, person in the back. I just decided, I had been a big fan of Nightboat for a very long time, and they're champions of hypertext and other wave books too. I had been reading at the time. I was reading a ton of I read Olio at the time when I was putting this together, and I was like, I'm gonna smush these together and see what happens. And just lightning struck. Nightboat had a prose open call thing, and I gave it to them, and they're like, oh, we get it. And I was like, you do? Okay. And then when we had those meetings, and I had told them I don't want to put a stamp on what genre this is. I just feel like these pieces are speaking to one another. And when we're in the editing process, they, for the most part, felt the same and wanted to nurture that idea that it was a book of prose as opposed to a novel or short story or essays or poetry or anything like that. So so that's a long way of saying I just knew.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So since you mentioned about working with Nightboat, I'm curious, you brought this manuscript to them, and then I'm curious what the editing process was then like, because it's not only about the hybridity of the text, but also the content too. And were editors able to talk about the other identity dimensions of the work and the craft elements, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I can answer that now. For anyone that has published any a manuscript of any sort, the editing process can get dicey. Tempers can flare sometimes, and feelings get hurt, namely the author. But the actual process of it, I was luckily paired with a non-binary femme Black editor who, they knew nothing about punk at all, but they saw what the book as a whole was trying to do, which was the best thing to happen to me. But that being said, at certain stages, they did have other editors just put their eye into the work. And that was both helpful in terms of what weren't we seeing in the microcosm of the work. And it ended up being a little bit problematic at times because, contradictions from editors are creep in. And so I mentioned before, the piece I just read was one of those editors really wanted the piece not in the book. And it was the white lady editor who had a problem with how many slurs there were in the book. And that was not a problem that my Black editor had. They were I've been to these parties before, it happens, But the white editor, who was very in tune with commercialization of the text, like how to sell this to like Barnes and Nobles and whatnot, was worried about how this could be perceived and how it can be like read like in these spaces. And I think that was a moment of me being a little brat of like, you don't know my life. Like, why are you telling me what to do? But there was an artistic middle ground where like in the text itself, so this little guy, every time I did this, that thing was like the slur in question, right? And me being someone who is used to reading poems, but not like full prose, like that was a method for me to like play with the text some more and play with like performance some more. And it ended up being like good in the end. So what was, I just found lucky is they saw the book as a whole. For the most part, even the person who was like, we got to sell this to Barnes and Noble, like the idea was, what is this artistically going to push forward? Like what are we going to make this as a whole? And, can you retain your vision despite us? And I think they understood that, and that was really helpful in the process. I think I saw a hand somewhere. Yes.
Well, thank you, first of all. But also, have you ever published with another publishing company? Has this experience with Nightboat Books been different than other experiences with other publishing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a chapbook with Glass Poetry Press, and I've had some critical essays published and other pieces published in anthologies, and they've all been widely different experiences. The anthology was, Chris, will you hold my bag real quick? Yeah. So Black Punk Now, cheap plug. Black Punk Now is anthology full of Black punk writers and artists and whatnot. That was handled through Soft Skull Press, and that was. I was telling Chris this earlier. That one had a piece in here from there, and one of the editors was like adamant that I cut the experimental stuff. Like there's a piece in here where I have like brackets over things, and he's like, get rid of the brackets. And then my buddy was like, don't cut the brackets. I like the brackets. Oxford. I published with Oxford before, and that's where Ian MacKay started to hate me actually. Because some presses don't do this if you do nonfiction, where like they will vet your research and vet your citation and whatnot. And only for Oxford, they're like, if you use a lyric or an epigraph, you have to get permission from the person themselves. So I had a Zorla Hurston quote in there, and I was like, she's no longer with us. I can't get permission here. So I had to cut that. But I had to get permission from Ian MacKay, lead singer of Minor Threat and Fugazi. And it was an essay about how I thought one of his songs was racist. So he had to read the essay to give me permission. And the lady, the editor who helped me was the middle person, and was very euphemistic with, he had some issues with some of the stuff you said, but he sucked it up, and I think he's gonna let you use the thing. I'm like, okay, good. I mean, it needs it. And then for the chapbook, I feel bad about this one. For the chapbook, it was a micro press. It was one guy. Vetting the submissions. There's one guy putting the chapbooks together. There's one guy editing the chapbooks. It was one guy getting payments for people. It was one guy getting the covers for people. It was one guy. This is his side job too. Like he was an exterminator or something like that as a full job, but he was doing everything for the love of the game. And I had more patience with that for obvious reasons. I was like, oh God, you're good. You're good. Just take your time. And Nightboat was the closest so far I've gotten to like a really intimate and really like getting in the guts of the the book from like a larger scale of publication. But yeah, it's so different. It's so different. Even if they change editors, it's a different experience entirely. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Many people.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, Marcus. I'm first of all, thank you for your art. I was wondering if you would speak about Heredia Becomes America, and your poetic prose is, I'm like, all right, brother. I'm like, yeah. As someone who is also brown, raised in UCLA from LA, but never taught Spanish, right? I'm just curious if you could speak on that and your process of creating this art that became Heredia Becomes America.
Yeah. So the piece he's referring to is like it's a weird thing about the genre too. I have this. I'm not gonna say like, oh yeah, my mom. It's an essay, so it's the speaker, or it's a fiction piece, so it's like the character's mom or whatever. But is a character who like immigrates from Costa Rica to America and has a terrible time, as is the style of always, and mixed in with these other very out there, I guess, interjections. Like, it's polyvocal. Here's the mom's perspective. Here's the kid's perspective. But also here's like a random tidbit about, Costa Rican animals. And then here's some noise, I guess. So that came from a prompt, actually. And it was like and a professor gave us like pick a YouTube video from your background and then write about it. And I just saw like this random ass like, I typed in Costa Rica and animals, and then this frog documentary popped up, and it was all about how frogs are really bad at taking care of their kids, or like just like the eggs get eaten really easily. And then my own mother has always had. I say this not to be like morbid. I'm confident my mom did not want children, right? So like I've always been obsessed with how different my dad and my mom had, in terms of like thinking about child rearing and like their backgrounds, right? Like she came to this country so excited and just so like, yeah, I can't wait to learn my ABCs and and it was so terrible. But then I'll ask her like, oh, how was growing up? And she's like, oh, it's good. I played jump rope with kids. But it's also that immigrant experience of like, you want this American dream to work out so bad, and anytime she tells me literally anything, I feel this hurts and trauma when she's like, yeah, when I was a kid, it's so funny. Like I peed my pants once in third grade because I did not know how to ask for the bathroom. And I was like, that sounds sad, Mom. She's like, no, it's funny. So like just playing with like that, that cycle of like what is traumatic can be funny to someone else, and what is, love or like expression of love can be a nightmare for someone else, right? Like child rearing. Like she told me once I had a surgery when I was a month old, and she tied her tubes days later because she couldn't handle seeing another child go through that. And I was like, damn, you really didn't want kids. But that makes sense to me, right? And so like there's that. It's like the idea of like taking care of something was something that I was like obsessed with, and just like the different angles of how people take care of things. And I really did have a dog for like a week, and then I was like, I can't do this. I live alone. This dog's very small, and it keeps pooping on everything, so I gotta get rid of it. But just like the idea of like what can we take care of, and like how many versions of protection are there? Yeah. Yes.
Maybe a more practical question.
Yeah.
Okay, some of what I know actually, just very little. Right? We have like we have PÓNK. We have at some point the PhD program at university.
Yes.
Right? And there's a lot of like amazing investment in like history and nonfiction writing, as well as other modes, and what Gabrielle is speaking to also, or asking you about, but I'm like, how does that all kind of fit in a life? I guess, because I think we're kind of at these similar, or, these structures where, some of us are either, preparing to apply for PhD programs, or, we want to be working in these different modes. I guess I'm just curious here, kind of about the trajectory of fitting that all in, like having the coalescing so beautifully into what you got going on now. And then also the how this all kind of ties in with like performance and like community shit. And like, you were part of a really cool event at USC last year. I think it was like a BIPOC symposium or fest or something. Or there was some.
There was. I did attend something. Yeah.
You were like, a three-degree speaker? I didn't go.
I need to check my CV.
I feel like I saw the news running.
All right.
But I guess it's like, how does it all happen?
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the worst time to ask me how I was getting a PhD, because I will beg you not to do that. But ask me again in like a month. I have just always been interested in many modes of expression growing up, and this is kind of a joke, but it's not really a joke. When I was like a kid, I want to be a good artist, right? Like like the painting Picasso, whatever. And then I did my first doodle, and I was like, this isn't good enough. I won't be an artist anymore. But then over time, I was just like, I want to create something, and I want to like express that creation however I possibly can. And I don't know, I discovered writing. I was a very voracious reader when I was younger, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. And then I discovered music when I was in my teens, and I was like, oh, I want to play guitar. I want to play like bass or whatever. And then I wanted to go to school, and then I wanted to I always wanted to be a teacher, but I just wanted to do like a lot of things. And I'm also very stubborn and very greedy. So I just would often think about like, what is the best way to do all of this at the same time, and so being I'm also a professor at various places, so like being a writer and professor was the best avenue for me to do that, and like and also like stuff I teach too, like I have students read books, but I'm also like, hey, maybe we should like watch this TV show real quick to get a sense of like what the reading's trying to say. Maybe we should listen to the song real quick. I'm teaching a hip hop class right now on campus. It's failing really bad. It's a bunch of white kids who are like, yeah, party. And I was like, turn to page 6. But it's the same thing as like implementing like music and literature, and just like finding those spots where all these things make sense together. It's kind of like, not to bring it back to the book, but I wasn't thinking about what genre this book was going to be. I just want to make these things fit, and that's just how I've lived my life. Also, my partner don't have kids and don't want kids, so that's been helpful. That's been so helpful for that. Yes. Yes.
I guess I hope I'm not hogging too much of the time, because I know I asked questions in the other, but I've been really curious about time in your novel and kind of how you represent it, because to me it's fascinating that entire chapter you just read, in a lot of sense in my mind, that all takes place in one night.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I know the same amount of, or not just one, but like in a few nights. Well, I know when you have like a punk concert, sometimes you'll see that be like a paragraph. It's up to the mock, and it's like something that's physically the same amount of time, but it'll feel like at least to me, felt very surreal, like it went over very quickly. And I guess I wanted to know, is that just you kind of projecting how you saw that? Was that kind of intentional? And I don't know, it was really, really interesting to me when reading it. So I'm kind of curious.
It's an interesting question. It's, again, with a bad answer of I just kind of did it, but there were moments, like I brought this up briefly in the class earlier, but like there are moments that feel like they take forever, but they're really just seconds. But in order to express how intense those feelings are, then maybe they're worth like stretching out, you know, in the prose itself. And like I said, living a former life as a poet, it's been easy for me to like really, easy is a bad word. It's been easy for me to, you know, try to like pare down like images and moments that feel like static, like beautifully static, if you will. And because like, you know, it's a book that stems from punk rock, and, you know, mosh pits get like not a whole lot of time in the paragraphs. That's also like, these characters know what those feel like. It's like having an everyday occurrence. Not everyday, you know, it's a common occurrence in their lives, and like these are like the moments of joy that they feel can come and go with ease, right? And so like those didn't feel as imperative to stretch out, you know, versus like, oh, this night where, you know, 3 minorities are talking about being a minority, and all the white people around are like, ugh, like that was, yeah, that felt like it was worth it to like kind of stretch out, like to see like what have I read that, you know, colored this night a bit more, or like what hindsight have I had that, you know, put more flesh on this bone, for lack of a better term. So it was just a matter of, you know, what's familiar to these people, what's not familiar to these people, and whatever's not familiar felt like worth putting some pressure on.
Do you write to music, or did you, for this book especially, like write to a soundtrack?
So the answer is yes. I'm just trying to figure out what I was listening to. But I do typically write to music just because I need white noise. But music I kind of like. If I'm listening to like my favorite album, I am not going to pay attention. But so like, because of that, I listen to like a lot of new stuff, which as a 36-year-old is not a thing you're supposed to do, right? Like it's like after like 30, you're like, okay, you're done with new stuff. But but I didn't say I believe it. I just said I've been told that and enacted sometimes. But I do try my best to see like what is, you know, two things, like what is new within my circles and communities, but also what did I miss out on, you know? So I'm trying to think of what, okay, this is my inner white girl coming out, I guess. But like a couple years ago, I was on draft like 3 of this book, and I discovered Björk for the first time. And because like for like ever, I was the weird girl from MTV, you know, as a kid. And then I just like, yeah, whatever, like Spotify's like, oh, you might like this song, and it starts playing I don't think like Hyper Ballad or something like that, and I was like bawling in the car driving home. I was like, I get it now. But during that time, I was like, okay, I have never experienced this artist before, or this intimately, so I would just like play her whole discography while I was like writing stuff, parts of this, because I could tune in when it sounded interesting. I could tune out when I was like, I don't know this song. But it was still like a memory that was being created in that moment, right? So like this year especially, I'll do a thing where like I make a playlist of like new albums that year, and I'll just like play them either sequentially or just like, oh, like what's Clips doing this year or whatever, right? And like I'll listen to it, and it's, you know, I'm not as familiar with it, so I can pay attention to the prose or the poetry, but I can also like just have that latch onto a memory of when I was like writing something, or it can help like propel my writing of something. And then once I start to know the songs, then I'm like, okay, we're done here. We can't do this anymore.
I think we should let you, after talking to us Rick, so much, just let you take a break from all this. We can still keep talking afterwards in the reception. Thank you so much for coming. Before you have the reception, I just want to remind you guys, the next reading is October 16th. That's Thomas Hobb.
Oh, it's my birthday.
Your birthday. It's also NK's birthday.
No, the 16th. Not today.
No, not today.
Thanks.